Hello and welcome to BYOB. I am author Nola, Nash, and this is...
I'm author Laura Kemp, and this is the other way. Sorry. I never can get that right.
We never know. We never get our Brady Bunch right. This is Zibby Owens. Zibby, we are so glad that you are able to join us today. We've been looking forward to this for quite some time. So thank you so much for carving out part of your day for us today. We're going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself. If it gets noisy here, I'm going to mute myself and go inside. But I'm in Hawaii, and I'm enjoying the palm trees and the breeze today. So I'm going to sit out here and do the Hawaii thing while you guys are in the cold.
I'm going to just enjoy watching you do the Hawaii thing because that takes me out of New York City for a minute. The cold, gray day here.
We need 30 minutes of warmth today.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, introduce yourself to folks. Let them know who you are, what you got going on.
Okay. Thank you, Nola and Laura. I am Zibby Owens, and I am the podcast host and creator of Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books, which is a daily literary podcast that I launched in March of 2018 and has been daily 7 days a week since the pandemic started. And at some point, I'm going to cut back, hopefully in June, to 5 days, but we'll see. Since I started the podcast, I've also launched a lot of other things. I've come out with 2 anthologies, Moms Don't Have Time To and Moms Don't Have Time to Have Kids. I have a children's book, Princess Charming, coming out, and a memoir, Bookends, a memoir of love, loss, and literature, coming out July 1st. I've started an essay platform called Moms Don't Have Time to Write for anybody who feels like writing a personal essay. We have Moms Don't Have Time to Grieve on Instagram. I started a publishing company called Zibby Books, where we publish 12 books of fiction and memoir a year, starting in January of 2023. I've done other things like start the Zibby Awards to celebrate the under-celebrated parts of books, like most creative spine and things like that. What else? I also had Moms Don't Have Time to Lose Weight. I also host a podcast called Sex Talk with Zibby and Tracy with anonymously sourced questions from listeners on sex. You could go to sextalkpod.com to enter questions, and the sex therapist Tracy answers them, and I basically blush and laugh while she answers. And so those are some of the things I do, and I have 4 kids of my own, which is what I really do, and a husband, and I just, don't sleep much, but try to do my best. So that's what I'm doing.
That was my next question for you: is when do you sleep?
How do you?
I write the Good Morning America column once a month for the books that I think are like the best books of the month, and I also do weekly columns for Katie Couric Media. When do I sleep? I do sleep, not well anymore, but I'm middle aged, so maybe that comes with the territory anyway. I might as well monetize it. I do have every other long weekend off because I'm divorced and remarried, so that is my secret sauce to accomplishing basically everything, because I catch up on sleep. I slept till 11 o'clock this Saturday. I read a lot, I write a lot, and I catch up on emails. So if I didn't have those, I don't know what I would do.
So I'm sorry, just a side. I had weekends like that too, Zibby. And then last weekend, my kids decided that they weren't going to go to their dad's anymore. And I was like, I've always kind of wanted that. But then I was like, oh, when am I going to get anything done? When am I going to write? So I totally understand the value of those weekends. So I'm glad that you still have
Mine are older. I honestly think, I thought it was going to be better when they got older. And now it's like, now there's big things that we're dealing with. Like, we're planning a wedding. I mean, my son's getting married in May. So we've got wedding stuff here. We've got now internships that they're trying to get for over the summer, and like all of these things, conversations going back and forth. And you're just like, oh my God, what is happening here?
Big kid stuff.
So
it's just still hard and it's still consuming. It's just a different stage. It's kids stuff.
Which is why I love your Moms Don't Have Time To series. I mean, all of these things, I think every mom can relate to that. Why now? Why was that something that you wanted to do now?
Well, it was something I wanted to do a couple of years ago, and now it just keeps growing. It started with writing. I've always loved to write, and when I got divorced about 6 or 7 years ago, I suddenly had all this extra time. and I could go back to reading and I could go back to writing. And when I had my kids, I was really frustrated because I wanted to spend time with them because I had limited time. And yet I was on the computer so much doing all the stuff for the kids. And I was just like, this is impossible. I'm like so it all kind of started with my frustration at the demands on modern motherhood. That's where it all started and it all came from. I also come at this from a place of loss. I've lost a lot of people in my life, and my best friend died on 9/11, who had been my roommate. I went from living with someone, being best friends with them, to having her like disappear. And that was the beginning of many losses for me, up until the pandemic, where I lost my mother-in-law and grandmother-in-law and had to go through that with my husband, who obviously was really affected. And I was like a bystander. But the spin on the time element is also that I realize how little time we all have. So can we somehow do the things we need to do while taking advantage of the time we have? So my brand is sort of a play on that, and trying to find the sense of humor and the commiseration and the impossibility of doing that effectively by doing it together and trying to laugh about it as we go. So that's where it came from.
I love the doing it together part, and understanding that there are other people out there that have that similar experience, and then trying to find the humor in it, because you get to a certain point where what can you do but laugh? Yeah. And laugh or cry. It feels good. Laugh or cry, or both. Same time.
Often both. Yeah,
absolutely both. But it does help to know that there are other people out there who feel the same way. And I think as modern moms, we can all say that we've experienced that pressure to do everything all the time for everyone. And we do doubt ourselves. We do feel like we don't have time to do this. I'm not doing a good enough job. There's all these other, I'm seeing things online. I'm seeing moms out there doing amazing things. And I'm over here trying to actually remember to put clothes on before I walk out to the grocery store. It's, you start to doubt. And so when you have that community and all of those other people, it helps to kind of validate your own experience, because there's other people having that experience with you. And what a great community to build for moms, because I think we all need that right now. There is no, they're really, the Stepford moms is just not a thing. Like, we're real moms, and real moms coming together to appreciate the real momness in all of us is awesome. So I think that's a fantastic thing. And honestly, with the pandemic, we are dealing with so much more than we've ever dealt with before, especially with kids being at home, trying to do school remotely, and all of these things that are not something anyone else in, past generations has had to deal with. And yet we still compare ourselves to the 1950s moms who had the spotless house and the dinner on the table. And, that's still the ideal. But why is that the ideal? That's just kind of what's in our head. And I love the moms don't have time to have kids. I mean, we don't.
I know that's it's true. We don't have time to have kids, too.
Right.
We can't have kids. We're too busy taking care of the kids.
Too busy. I know that Nola and I are also teachers, so we're trying to navigate the virtual learning. And you're totally virtual now, right, Nola? Doing everything online. And
yep.
And
which is why I can be here.
Oh my gosh.
In person, but you never know from week to week if we're going to go virtual. So, yeah, there's a lot on our plates that it is nice to connect up with other moms and not feel like you're different or strange, because you don't always have it all together.
Interestingly, there was just this article in the Wall Street Journal by a reporter named Julie Jargon, who I love and follow, about this sort of epidemic of loneliness among moms our age, about women our age, who aren't necessarily finding their people where they are. And I wrote an article about this, like from not a reported piece, but like a whole thing on friendship about a friend of mine who I passed quickly on the street, who was like, my mom friends, like, they're not nice to me, or, whatever, these aren't my people. And I'm like, your people aren't necessarily in your class at school. That's like 15 people in the world.
Yeah.
Right. There are thousands of people on, and I feel like if only we harness this the right way, because a lot of women want the same things, right? They want to feel understood and be a part of like a nice group of people. It's not so hard, right? But it's a question of like finding those people and relating. And that's why I think books are the medium for doing this. Because books, and, I just interviewed Jacqueline Michard yesterday, who said, like, there's nothing better than gossiping over a book, right? Because that's what you have to do, is you sort of have to gossip over people to connect.
Yeah.
And that's what books do so well. It's like, no, we don't have the cheerleader to talk about or something, but could we have a character in this book? So I'm hoping that the books that we come out with serve that purpose. I'm hoping that by recommending books, people, and having like my virtual book club or whatever, that I don't know, at least I could bring people together around books, because that seems to be the best.
Isn't it? It's like high school for older ladies like ourselves, and we can gossip about the characters like that.
Yeah, and people who love to think. I mean, there's not always so many opportunities, right? I finished all my school, and I was like, well, what? Now I'm like on the floor, I still, my brain doesn't shut off because I've chosen to stay home with my kids, or I've chosen to pursue this one business, right? That requires one skill set. I still want to read or be intellectually stimulated or immersed or whatever. So I feel like just harnessing those, like all that desire and brain power that we all have. So
it is hard for young mothers of young children to be intellectually stimulated. I mean, especially when they're home with their children all the time. So yeah, books are a great outlet for that. I just signed up for your newsletter too before I
thank you.
So I'm excited to see all the news.
I do a really bad job promoting my newsletter, I have to say. So thank you for doing that. I can never find the link. I'm like, it's so bad. It's just so bad.
I haven't even managed to create a newsletter, so you're right. The fact that you have one that's not being promoted is still a step better than me.
Better than us.
Just haven't gotten there. And most of it is like, I'm thinking, I don't know that I have anything that people really want to hear that often. So I'm just like, no.
I have my Facebook page that I do a lot of my news on, and I'm not sure what I could add to my newsletter that would be any different. But
the same way. I feel that way about TikTok
for me to do. I don't know.
I basically do it. I do it a lot for I do have friends who aren't on social media, or maybe they want to save everything for when they have time. So I like to have it even for me, like what articles came out of Moms Don't Have Time to Write this week or something. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I just try every week to try something new.
Well, what project are you working on right now? If you had to get off of this podcast and pick something up and do it, what are you working on?
Let's see. I will soon be getting my kids from school.
That's a good project.
Yeah,
good project. They would appreciate that project.
I'm always prepping for podcasts that I'm doing. So I have a couple of authors that I'm interviewing this week. So I just finished, getting ready for all those. And I have a lot of those the next 2 days. And I'm also doing a lot of early publicity work for my 2 books that are coming out in April and July, which is so fun. And I got some great test runs with my anthologies, but trying to, partner with interesting people and do events that I won't be devastated if they go virtual and things like that. So I'm working on those publicity plans. I'm going to put the final edits on my memoir this weekend because I have to have it in by Tuesday latest so we can have galleys. So I'm working on those. I have to start my February books list for GMA. That's due in a couple days. And I'm collecting quotes for a roundup I'm doing for Katie Couric Media about people's picks for romance books. I don't know.
Are you a list maker? How do you keep track of all this? Or does it just float in your mind?
Question.
Do you keep a list?
I get a list when I get really overwhelmed. Okay. So then I often lose my list. But on Friday, I wrote a list and I was like, must do in all caps, with 10 things. And then this weekend I was like, where is that list? What did I do? So I did enough that I can throw it out and start a new one for today. But yes, I go through my emails and I figure out what from all the emails isn't just an email. It's actually a big thing I have to do. So yeah.
I will do that too. I'll make a list short term, the top 10 things I have to do. And then there's long term stuff. But then I end up losing it too and having to make another one, and then it.
I can't do the long term. The long term is too strong. I can't cross it out, so I'm not putting it on a list.
I do enjoy the crossing out of the items on the
Me
list.
too.
That's highly satisfying. So
I agree.
Yeah,
I love doing that. I'm a Post-it note person, so I've got my Post-it notes stuck on things with like my list on it, and then I love to be able to cross off everything on the Post-it note, wad it up, and throw it away. Like that's my thing. Peel that Post-it note off. That's the best.
Throwing away the entire note list is really fun too.
That is good.
There is something satisfying in doing that. So, Zibby, when you do a daily podcast, I mean, I do a weekly podcast and we do this one monthly, and there's a lot that goes into that. How do you manage getting all of those people lined up, getting just the time to get out a daily podcast? What's the process there for you?
Well, I've been doing it almost 4 years now, and I have refined the process immensely from when I used to do it all by myself to now having a team. I sell my ads through the Acast network, so they can you hear that clicking? Is that my side?
Yeah. I don't know. If I mute myself.
Nola's lawn
let me.
boys. I don't know.
Was it me? Okay. Well, I don't know. Sorry if I'm doing something.
It's okay.
I could change my speaker. But wait, now I'm like blanking on the question. What did you just ask? I'm sorry, I got distracted by this clicking.
What's your process for the daily podcast? How do you manage all of the things that go into a daily podcast? Because we know it's a lot to do as infrequently as we do it.
Yes. So I'm on the Acast network, and they sell the ads. I have a podcast producer now named Chelsea, who I love. So after I record, I upload the files and to the sound guys. They edit it, and then they send the final file to her to upload and put in like the ad markers. I spend a ton of time figuring out who to have on the podcast. So that takes a ton of time because I get pitched tons of books, and then I have to whittle them down to figure out who to put on and make sure I have a mix of every element I want mixed up. So that takes the longest. And yeah, I'm going to try. I'm always innovating. I'm going to try something new starting in the summer. I'm doing Calendly, and I'm only having certain slots as opposed to like constantly being like, how about this? How about that? But Chelsea helps me schedule. And now with the Calendly, it'll be more efficient.
I've moved to Calendly too for my weekly one. I love Calendly. That's I love being able to say, this is when I can do it. Pick one.
Yep. So I don't know. That's it's become, we have like systems in place. I think having systems makes it much more efficient.
It does. Now, you've got your choice of authors, I'm sure. You've got people clamoring, chomping at the bit, trying to get onto the podcast. And you've got tons of books that people are going to want recommended. You put on your lists of things. How do you choose? How do you pick which books are going to be the ones that make it onto your recommendation list? And how do you decide, this is the author that I want to feature in, whether it's the Katie Couric or the GMA or the podcast? How do you determine this is the right fit for me? What are you looking for?
That's a really good question. Something about it has to really interest me personally. Like I just have to respond to it in some way. And I have to keep saying to myself, like, if I were in a bookstore, would I pick this up? So there's that element. Like, would I really? And then is there something really interesting I want to talk to this author about? Maybe there's something really fascinating. Maybe they, started some amazing company and I'm really curious. Like, how does a refrigerator company work? I mean, that hasn't happened, but maybe I'm curious about that. So maybe I'll have the person on to talk about that. Or, maybe it's a point of view I haven't heard before and I'm interested in learning about, some sort of background, or maybe it's a format that I find really interesting, or a place I want the author to take me. Like maybe I feel like I'm in the mood for Venice and it's a book based in Venice and I'm like, I'm in the mood for that. So I have to say there's no science to it. I've probably passed on tons of books I should have had on or could have had on. I could have every book on. I could talk to every author and I would like that. But I really am trying to be true to myself of like, what would I pick up? What would I tell? Like I have a good friend. We always swap books still. Like, what would I tell Isabel? Like, what am I really going to tell her that's really good? And I start it, by the way, I read some of it. Like I if I like the pitch on email, I have the book sent. and then I sit and I go through piles like once a week, and I read the beginnings, I flip through it, I see if it's interesting, I see if I want to read more, and if I do, I put it in the yes pile, and then I have a maybe pile, and a no pile is like, well, this sounds good, but I don't know, it's not unique enough, or I'm just not in the mood, and it doesn't mean it's a bad book. It's just like this is what I feel like. So I don't know. It's probably.
I had a question regarding Zibby books, because I thought it was so neat when I got on the site and I looked at your submission guidelines that there's not a list of genres like a mile long. When you're an author and you're submitting to different publishing houses, you see, we're taking this genre, we're not taking this genre. And in your submission form, it basically said you were publishing fiction and memoir and authentic voices and diverse voices. And as an author, that was like, I don't know, like the heavens opened and the angels were singing. I was like, oh, I'm not going to be excluded because of my genre. So is that because that's how you feel sometimes if you get pigeonholed, and sometimes story is lost. I feel like story gets lost in genre sometimes.
It's true.
And both Nola and I's books are cross genre, so they go every which way. And it's been hard for us at times to find our niche because of that. But was that a purposeful thing that you did with Zibby Books, was kind of just have it open to just a good story?
I mean, I think, yes. We do have some things that we don't want to do. We're not doing like fantasy sci-fi books, really. There are some guiding principles, but yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what works best. And it's about the writing. A lot of it's about the writing. Like, we're really looking for great writing. Like, that's so exciting to open up a document and be like, wow, she can write. That's awesome. Or, like, I really want that too. And the story usually follows. But I also we're commissioning books by authors who I think just have interesting stories to tell, who are memoirists. I'm interested in the stories. And so is Lee Newman, my co-founder, Lee Newman.
Do you have particular genres that you like best, or are you just across the board, you'll read anything that's just a good story?
I like to read a lot of different things. Like today was perfect. I spent like 45 minutes with 4 different books in a row. And I read like an immigration story about the history of the Philippines and like what it's like for one immigrant. It's called Conception by Albert, what's his last name? And then Richard Damrosch, Around the World in 80 Books. He's like a comp lit professor at Harvard. And I got to learn about all the books through history and like, the Lodz Ghetto. And then like this funny mom book called Mom Truths by Kat and Nat, or Mom something. And then like short stories by Laura Lippman. And these are all from my podcast, but like, what an amazing couple hours I had this morning. I was all over the place in the world, but I was in one place myself. And so in the way that I like mixing it up for the podcast, I also like mixing it up for Zibby books.
Yeah. I'm kind of the same kind of reader. I jump from book to book to book. And it's like, I'm never going to finish one of them.
You don't have to finish. As long as you buy the book, you're supporting the author and the bookstore and whatever.
I always feel guilty when I don't, though. So I'm that person.
You know what? No.
Okay. No guilt. Good.
No guilt.
All right.
So Zibby, when you decided to take that first step into publishing, why did you do it? I mean, what was actually kind of like the motivation to do that? What launched you in that direction, as opposed to just kind of sticking with the author thing? And there's enough work to be done when you're an author. I mean, to publish, to do the publicity for your own books, but now you've taken on other people's books as well to publish and get them out there. What was the catalyst for that?
I mean, I hope it wasn't a mistake, but it was because I just kept hearing the same things over and over again from authors, and I had my own experience with 3 different publishers, but it was more coming from the authors, things that seemed structurally difficult to accomplish because of the way big publishing houses are aggregating, through no fault of the people in publishing, who are generally great and want all the best for the books. But I felt like maybe there was a new way to do things if you started it from scratch in today's world. And I saw how advantageous it could be to be so nimble when the pandemic hit, and that I could like pick and choose, and it took everybody a while to sort of catch up and evaluate and whatever. And I was like, no, like we try. Like, I love experimenting, and if it doesn't work, switching gears. Like, I find that very exciting. And testing things out, and we're doing that now. I also just have had like a few experiences where I'm like, I would love to make this into a book, like maybe I could help. And I don't know. It's not like it was one of my big dreams. My big dream was always to own a bookstore, and it was never to be a publisher. But this has all just sort of happened, and I feel like now I'm in the right spot. We're having so much fun. I really feel like I'm just very excited about what we're setting out to do and the things that we've already been able to accomplish. So.
Well, I know you've been interested in a book called Find Your Unicorn Space, right? Is that what?
Yes.
So what would you say is your unicorn space? Is it when you're doing the stuff with the publishing house or with your kids? What's your personal unicorn space?
This connecting with authors, connecting with and like building this whole thing around it, this community. I'm loving this. It's hard for me, actually. I'm like working on not doing it so much that I make time for the things that are way more important in my life, like my kids and my husband, who I will always, stop everything, but not really if it's a podcast, but, I'll get to them in 20 minutes. It's a balance. It's hard, but I am so energized. I'm just so energized right now that, I think this is my unicorn space, sort of building this little thing I've got going. So.
Well, you can tell because you shine through as being very authentic and very joyful in what you're doing. So.
Oh, good. Because I am. I really am.
You can't fake that. So I don't think you can fake that kind of stuff. People sense that. So it seems like you're really coming from that when you're doing your stuff.
Thank you. That's nice of you to say.
You're welcome.
Awesome.
Well, Zibby, before we let you go, tell us about Princess Charming. You've gone into children's books, and Princess Charming just looks adorable. Tell us a little bit about Princess Charming.
I'm very excited about Princess Charming. She is a girl who can't seem to find her thing, and then she realizes that her thing is that she never gives up. And there's like a little twist at the end, but she's always trying, similar to actually what I was saying about experimenting, like always trying. It's sort of loosely based on my daughter who just couldn't seem to find her thing, and everybody had a thing. Why do I not have a thing? I have 4 kids, and I don't know, it's just like not everybody, you do have a thing. You don't ever give up. Like, you're amazing. That's a thing in and of itself. And it's going to, by the way, take her farther than probably other people who were like, I'm good at travel soccer when I'm in 1st grade. So, she's adorable, and she's going to have lots of adventures. There's a second Princess Charming book that'll come later. Excited for her to join the world.
Well, that is super exciting. The wind is picking up over here, so I'm going to keep muting myself. I don't know how much wind you guys are hearing. These palm trees are like,
I heard that crackling,
but
I don't know what it was.
Hang on, I can't hear you over the
wind. All right. Well, sorry.
Anyway, tell everybody where we can find you.
The wind there.
You hear the wind?
Yeah, I hear it.
Zibby, let everybody know where they can find you, and we're going to let you go because I know you are very busy.
Okay. They can find me on Instagram at Zibby Owens, ZIBBYOWENS, and my podcast is Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books, and my website is zibbyowens.com, although it needs some work. Anyway.
Well, Zibby, thank you so much for joining us. Laura, always a pleasure to get to see you again. This has been a copywritten podcast of Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, and we will see you soon for more BYOB.